It's another 2026 rookie mock draft. We're going Superflex with Seth from the In Between Media team. Let's go. Oh, yes, Seth, I am excited for this. We were chatting off air. We're confused. This is the third, maybe fourth time you've been in the show. We've agreed it's definitely at least the third time you've been on the Dynasty Hotseat. A very fond, familiar face. Welcome back, my friend. How you doing?
Mags, always a pleasure to speak with you. You are an absolute knowledge of wealth when it comes to this incoming rookie class and starting to transition, right? You know, we've been live almost every single day over on the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel, making content pre-recorded there in between there and in between media. So kind of nice to step out of the, in-season grind, if you would. We get that nice holiday break, and now we're turning the page. We're looking forward to Senior Bowl down in Mobile a couple of weeks from now. And, from now and then, it's just kind of crunching, studying as much as I can about this incoming class that we've had the pleasure of watching over the last few years in collegiate football.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see what these guys can do. And yeah, you're right there. End of one grind into another, right? With the rookie tape and everything about to start up. So before we get into it, we are going super flex. We don't have any tight end premium. We're going to try and blast through 2 rounds as well. Before we get into that, Seth, any general overview for the class? Because I've had a couple of guests on now, and everyone kind of has the same opinion of, I like 6 guys, and then it's not that many.
It's super interesting, Max, because I've had that opinion for a while as well. And this is one of those classes that, honestly, our opinion over the last, 4 or 5 months has changed drastically. A couple of months ago, I was really high on this class. I specifically the quarterback position, right? And the quarterbacks we're going to be talking about today are not the same ones we were talking about 4 or 5 months ago coming into the college season when it was guys like Cade Klubnik and Drew Aller, Lenore Sellers, who were really at the top of that tier. And now it's a completely new set of faces who have come into the fold. And, I do agree that I think it's a front-loaded class. I love the top 6 picks, and I do think there is a tier break. That being said, though, I love round 2 right now, man. I'm trying to trade into as many round 2 slots as I can in my dynasty leagues because this is a really deep, I think, wide receiver and running back class. Again, does it have the top end talent that we've seen the last couple of seasons? No, but I think there are still a lot of good faces that can make their name in the NFL in seasons to come.
Yeah. Well, we're going to. I'm really excited actually get into round 2. We've not done a full 2 round draft so far on the hot seat. So this is the first one. I can't wait to see some new names appearing then in round number 2. So no time like the present, Seth. Let's jump into it, shall we? We're going to start at the 101, as you might expect. It is super flex. Does that change things for you? It's kind of a bit tricky sometimes when do you take a quarterback, do you not? What are you going to go with?
Yeah, so for a while, I've been at Fernando Mendoza at the 101. That is where I'm going to go here, the quarterback out of Indiana. Yep. And I was, super hoping that the Giants could lose out so they could have that number 1 overall pick, and maybe a team like the Rams or someone else that I trusted a bit more could really move into that position to take Mendoza. He's going to go to the Raiders most likely. You don't love the landing spot, but hey, Tom Brady, from all accounts that we're hearing from the insiders, is drastically going to have a role in who is the next head coach, who is the next play caller of the Las Vegas Raiders. So I think with that and Brady also in his ear, that will help Mendoza, the 2025 Heisman Trophy winner. And the thing about this kid, like, he is the prototypical size, right? He's 6'5", he's 225. But, like, the thing I like about him most, dude, is, like, he is a nerd that just loves ball. Like, I have no questions about him off the field. I think that the intangibles are there as well. He led Indiana to this undefeated season, the Big Ten title, the number 1 overall seed in the CFP playoffs, a dog walk of my guy Phil Cartledge's Alabama Crimson Tide there in the quarterfinals as well. So he has been great. A nation high 33 passing touchdowns coming into the playoffs, second best yards per attempt as well. So, like, I think when you look across his Cal and his IU tape, you really got to like that he's just an accurate quarterback, right? 21st all time in college football history in completion percentage. So while he's not the most mobile guy, he scored 6 touchdowns on the ground under Sig Signetti this year. So I like the pocket presence. I think the accuracy is borderline elite, especially in the clutch moment. So like for me, like the biggest things I think that are going to take people maybe away from Mendoza at the 101 is like, does he have the purest arm talent? No, like I'm not going to say this guy has a Matthew Stafford level arm, right? A lot of people don't, but I think he has the work ethic. I think he has the moxie. He's going to be in the lab, and I think he can get better every single day. So he is a worthwhile long-term investment, especially if you're at the 101 and rebuilding in dynasty leagues.
Yeah, we should have maybe mentioned this. This episode should be called like the Phil Cartledge Bowl, right? He does stuff for the dynasty. He does stuff in between media. Like what a guy! I feel we've got an absolute gem on our hands with Phil for sure. So shout out to Phil. And Mendoza, you brought up a really good point there actually about going to Vegas, and with a lot of these players. I mean, we've seen it before, and tragically with guys like Henry Ruggs. I mean, go to Vegas and being a teenager, moving to Vegas and becoming a millionaire overnight, not easy. But you feel like Mendoza, I've got no concerns about him at all with that. He seems like, yeah, you're right, just like a level-headed like nerd who just likes playing football. So I really think that's one of the, what's that word? Intangibles, right, Seth? Yeah. It's one of the intangibles that's maybe hard to measure, but so important for Mendoza. So I love that he's in at pick number 1. Who's going to follow him with your second pick?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to, beat around the bush here. It's Jeremiah Love. This is a guy that I was actually on preseason to win the Heisman Mags 80-1. I was so hoping he would get there across the finish line there. He didn't. He was at least a finalist, so I can take some pride in that. 6 foot, 6 foot flat, 214 pounds. And I think why I really like him is not only is it the production, he comes from another 1,100 rushing yard season, 19 total touchdowns, but also at the same time, like this guy can really add stuff through the air, right? He's a really good pass catcher, and he stayed healthy all this season. Like that is something I wanted to see from him. He led the Irish to that 10-2 season, and like just on the outside looking in of that CFP picture as well, 2025 Doak Walker Award winner, nation's top running back. And like for me, I think he's going to be a top 15 pick. I think he's going to be a top 20 pick in this draft. I think he's going to have the capital. And the best way I can put it like to people who haven't seen a lot of Jeremiah Love on tape yet, is like he is a Blazer, but I think the contact balance is exceptional as well. Like my early comp for him is Le'Veon Bell with a bit more acceleration, a bit more jump off the line, right? So most rookie running backs do have the issue that they're not the best in pass pro. They need to develop their route tree. I think that's Jeremiah Love's biggest weakness, right? We haven't seen him run a lot of routes outside of some wheels, some dump off, some Texas routes. So I need to see him develop that a little bit. Would love to see him get better in pass protection, because we did see Prince take a lot of those reps from him. Still, though, I think he's a 3-down guy at running back. I think immediately he comes in and handles 15 to 20 touches. The landing spot, though, will be key. And if it is a banana landing spot like the Kansas City Chiefs, I think he could potentially sneak up into that 101 conversation.
Yeah, what I really loved about Jeremiah Love, he started off a little bit slow. Like it was at the start, it was like, oh, hold on, what's going on here? But then he got into this almost like this like flow state where it looked like he wasn't even thinking about it, and his feet were just like, his feet were so nice. And I really liked how he was able, you kind of mentioned it there, to kind of find this happy place in between like playing a power game and playing like this speed game as well. And just where you think like someone's going to catch him. He seems to always have that other gear. But I think there's not a lot of special prospects in this class. And weirdly, even though Mendoza goes ahead of him and will go ahead of him in the NFL draft and will go ahead of him in a lot of Superflex drafts, I think that's because he's a quarterback. I think Love is a more special prospect at his position, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's always like Superflex for me. Those quarterbacks are so valuable and so hard to trade for that I usually do prefer a quarterback 101. Sure. Last year I was Genty eventually over the quarterbacks in that class, which pretty easy to do, I think, right, with the landing spot for Cam Moore and just no other quarterback really close to him in draft capital aside from Jackson Dart. But yeah, I think when you're looking at like most talented players in this class from a fantasy perspective, it is absolutely Love. It's just, where will he end up, and can he eventually, right off the bat, at least have more dynasty value than Mendoza? I think that's going to be a really important question and something to monitor.
Yeah, absolutely. He's locked in at position number 2. We're going to roll on into pick number 3. Seth, where are you going?
Very candidly, like I have to admit that this next 4-pack of wide receivers I have coming out for you, like there is a lot of debate and there is a lot of fluidity in my rankings. Like I'm really excited to get down to Mobile, see a couple of these seniors at least in person. And then at the same time, what are they going to be doing at the combine as far as their 40 times? And also like I have health concerns with a couple of them. And that includes my number 3 overall player, Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State, because like this is one of those guys that I think he can be a true alpha wide receiver, right? 6'2", 200 pounds. I think he really excels in creating separation. And also it just comes down with the rock in those contested situations. It's really like a great catch radius. Like I almost compare his catch radius like more of like a George Pickens, a little bit of a lighter version of that. And then kind of like the elusiveness and the route running Jordan Addison to me as well, kind of combined into one player. So like he went over 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns as a junior in 2024. That was great. But then he did suffer that season-ending knee injury. Right. And that was his second season ender because he also tore his ACL, his MCL, and his PCL all the way back in 2022. He has only played 9 games or had only played 9 games this season. He had that hamstring injury, the ankle injury he was dealing with. Of course, I think the decision to shut down Sam Levitt ultimately shut him down as well. But I think if we're talking pure ceiling in this class, I don't know if any of the other wide receivers have more ceiling than Jordan Tyson. It's just what are the medicals going to be when we get to Indianapolis? That is what I need to figure out when it really solidifies him into that number 3 spot.
Yeah, he's a really interesting prospect. And I asked on the last episode, come out, I asked Garrett Price from the Dynasty. I was like, man, what we really need is a study. And Seth, you might know if this exists. If someone looked into college injuries and seen how much of an actual effect it has going into the NFL, I would love to see those numbers. I don't have time to do it personally, but I would love if one of the listeners out there, if someone did have time to actually go out, right, Jordan Tyson's got injury X, Y, and Z. What's going to happen when he actually comes into the league? What are the chances of re-aggravation going forward? That would be a study that would be game changing completely. I think for Dynasty Fantasy Football, but I don't think it exists, Seth. I don't know if you've seen anything like it.
Dr. Deepak Chona, he does some great work for us over at Fantasy Pros. He's done a couple different things. Maybe not directly every single player, but I know he's looked at the various injuries, and like sometimes he has said that having this injury riddled, college profile, especially when it is a major knee injury, sometimes that knee is good, right? And sometimes like you're not expecting to re-tear that knee. It's more, is the other knee still good, right? And hopefully he doesn't end up in a place like the 49ers where, I don't know if you've seen all the shockwaves and all the conspiracy theories out there with the electrical plant they have next to their practice facility, but somewhere like that, I would be a little worried, I think. Or if he went to the Giants to play on MetLife Field as well, that'd be a bit concerning.
I'm just concerned about anyone playing on MetLife. Like any guy on there, it's like, they're in trouble. Yeah, Tyson definitely a superb prospect. He's in at your wide receiver 1, and that's going to be such an interesting debate. I can't wait to see where the chips fall with that. And are we staying with the wide receiver position? And you kind of teased it there. Is that where we're going next?
Yeah, absolutely. It's CARNELL Tate, former wide receiver out of Ohio State. And for me, like, I just love the security that these Ohio State wide receivers bring to the NFL. They're never going to really bust for the most part, at least the ones that we've seen in the modern era, recruited and coached by Brian Hartline, right? He comes in 6'3", 195. And like, there are the concerns that people throw out there, like Emeka Egbuka, like Chris Olave, like others, that he was never the best wide receiver for the Buckeyes, right? I don't care. That is a lazy narrative. We need to get it out of this entire context because this is still a 5-star prospect who had 52 receptions, over 733 yards as the wide receiver in 2024. And then coming into the playoffs, he was still sitting with over 9 touchdowns, 838 yards, almost 50 receptions. And that's playing with arguably one of the best wide receivers I've ever seen in college football in Jeremiah Smith playing across from. So the thing you got to like about CARNELL Tate is, to me, kind of reminds me a little bit of a T. Higgins type of wide receiver where he's a deep ball guy. He's a red zone threat. I think he does get off the line better than most, and he will thrive in traffic in those contested catch situations as well. So like the biggest questions I think for Tate are, is he going to run the 40? Because there might be a situation where we just don't want to see him run the 40. Maybe his agent tells him not to, or at least not at the combine. Maybe it's a pro days type of situation. And can he work as a true number one, specifically on those short design touches? Because this is a deep ball maven type of guy. He's great down the field, but I would like to see him. Can he make those screen games count? We saw it a little bit there in that first CFP game for Ohio State against Miami. We were seeing him kind of used on some of those more design touches. So I think he can do it all, but we just haven't seen him be asked to do it all yet at this point. So I think those are the biggest questions. But I think as far as pure talent and pure evaluation standpoint to how it can translate to the NFL, CARNELL Tate, he's up there with the best of them.
Yeah, I think you sort of answered my follow-up question him there already, which was just 30 minutes before we went on air here. I seen an article that ESPN, I believe, put up saying CARNELL Tate, can he be the new Jackson Smith and Jigba? It's like, I've been watching this guy wrong the entire time. He's nothing like Jackson Smith and Jigba, right?
No.
Yeah. Like, not even close.
No, I would. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba is a technician, right? I do not consider CARNELL Tate a technician. He is not going to win purely on his route running. Part of that's going to be the physicality. Part of that's going to be the after the catch ability for him. Again, I think the closest thing you're looking at is like a CARNELL or like a T Higgins. Like that's kind of who he reminds me of as far as like, yeah, T Higgins isn't going to be like, the best possession wide receiver. I think CARNELL Tate can be the one in offense, but I think playing across from an elite one, he could be a monstrous two. Like if the Cowboys were to, for some reason, let George Pickens get out of the building, or if the Steelers were ready to invest in another Ohio State Buckeye, right? I think that would be fantastic. Like those are the scenarios I'm looking for CARNELL Tate. And we've seen it time and time again, especially whether it was this year with George Pickens or back in 2017 when Juju Smith-Schuster had his breakout season. Like these guys who can work across from elites and they can have almost arguably better wide receivers seasons than their wide receiver one in that offense.
Yeah, absolutely love it. T Higgins, that's the best comp I've heard for CARNELL Tate so far. That ticks every single box for me. So he's locked in at pick number 4. Who's going right after CARNELL Tate? We're staying at wide receiver, are we?
Yeah, we absolutely are. And this might be hot, but I'm going to go ahead and throw out Elijah SARRATT, wide receiver for Indiana. And this is a player who, keep in mind, he has followed Sig Signetti into battle, right? I mean, comes from JMU. So I know everyone wants to absolutely shit on the G5. Look, Mags, I love the G5, man. The G5 produces really, really good players. Do they always stay there in the modern era of college football? Absolutely not. But sometimes you get like a Harold Fannin Jr., right, who just wrecks the MAC for his entire career and then comes in the NFL and does the same thing. But, you look at what SARRATT has done in his career. He was second in the Sun Belt in receiving yards, nearly 1,200 yards as a sophomore, right? And that was when JMU, very new to the FBS level at the same time too. So you got to give him credit there. And then he proved that he can handle high-level competition in the Big Ten, right? Playing against some of those elite cornerbacks the country has to offer. He finished 6th in the conference in receiving yards in 2024 with almost 1,000 of them. He was banged up during the middle of this season. So, again, health concerns could potentially be something for SARRATT, but he's been, ready and pretty much available for most of his career. And then still led the conference in receiving touchdowns heading into the postseason with 12 of them as well. So, I think he's got the NFL frame. He's 6'2", he's 209. And I think he's just a monster across the middle and in run blocking. Like, to me, I said it last year when I was on this show, Mags, like Emeka Egbuka, he was my wide receiver 2 of that class. And a large part of that was I thought he was pro ready. Pro ready. And I think SARRATT is very much pro ready, a lot like his teammate that we'll talk a little bit later about in the second round as well. I think there are going to be questions. What is the overall speed like? What is the yak ability like? Because like really this guy's bread and butter are curls, their comebacks, and there are a lot of deep shots, right? So I want to see him working over the middle a little bit more. But I think he's absolutely capable of it. And I think he's a plug and play wide receiver 2 in the NFL. And I think he can give you a Emeka Egbuka level upside that we saw last year where you can plug him into really any offense and he's going to deliver at least wide receiver 2 fringe, wide receiver 3 numbers right off the rip. And eventually I think a wide receiver 1 season is in the cards for him.
Do you think we talked about the 40 being the most important thing for CARNELL Tate? What about that wide receiver gauntlet drill for SARRATT? He's got to impress there, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, overall speed and agility, I think, is this guy's biggest question mark. So really all of those drills that we're going to be seeing out there in Indianapolis, I think will be key to seeing what really his draft capital is. Because I wouldn't be surprised, Mags. I don't think if he can get into round 1, but if not round 1, it feels like a Ladd McConkey where it's like, okay, latest it's going to be an early day 2 pick.
Yeah, if you're Vegas, if you take Mendoza, you're long.
Oh.
SARRATT comes right back to you,
baby.
right?
Oh, but okay. Well, yes, that would be. I mean, you would love that, right? That would be fantastic. I didn't even put that together, but that would be just a tremendous fit, I think, for him, especially because like who's the wide receiver 1 in that offense, not counting Brock Bowers out of the tight end spot, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it seems that would be perfect case scenario for them. I'm sure that would I think launch him up draft boards as well for sure. So he's locked in at 1-5 for now. Who's going right after him at pick 1-6 for you?
Yeah, so it's going to be MAKAI Lemon, wide receiver for USC for me. This year's Balintikoff winner as well, much to my chagrin, right? I was on Jeremiah Smith. I had a pretty hefty ticket on him to take home that award. Ultimately, he did not, and for good reason, right? Lemon had a really great season, over 1,150 yards, led the Big Ten in receiving, 11 touchdowns, 79 receptions. He has 5'11", 195, so a bit of that like new school wide receiver that's going to rely on being a bit more technical, a bit more fluid in his routes. The biggest difference, I think, or the biggest like just difference that I think all the analysts are going to have on Lemon, like, is his size and can he get off press, right? Because he is a smaller receiver. He hasn't been asked to get off press a ton. But I think really when it comes to someone like this, while he's not the most physical guy, I think he has the acceleration that can make up for it. I don't have the same questions about acceleration and burst that I do with guys like SARRATT and CARNELL Tate. I know Lemon can do that. For me, it's just he's going to have to find the right offense to really be worth a top 6 draft capital wise in fantasy. But I think he will. I think there are enough schematically brilliant NFL head coaches and offensive coordinators out there that can find a way to use this guy effectively.
Yeah, this is my guy, Seth. This is
where do you have
guy.
Lemon?
Oh, I put out a tweet earlier. I'm this close to putting him in a tier on his own at 1. I'm that much.
Oh. 1 overall or 1 for wide receivers?
The one for wide receiver.
Okay.
I'm not pushing 1 overall just yet. One for wide receivers though. I'm this close, but I haven't started watching the tape too closely, so I don't want to make any bold decisions just yet. But he's my 1 at least for now. I do want to see more CARNELL Tate. That's the one guy that I said last week. I feel like he kind of maybe ghosts through games a little bit, and then you look at the stat sheet at the end, you're like, oh my god, he went over 100 yards. How'd that happen? Whereas Lemon is just like, wow, like in your face, like right there. Like you can't miss him. So I'm going to be a bit more reserved, but until I watch dig into the tape a little bit more. But for now, Lemon is the guy that really pops for me. So he's in there at 6, and you talked about a 4 run at wide receiver. Is this where the run ends? Then you move into another position at 7.
Yes, it is. I'm going to go back to the quarterback. I'm going to go with Dante Moore out of Oregon. Again, we still don't know the decision for Dante Moore. Transferred from UCLA after 1 season. I think he got a lot in that 2024 year where he sat behind Dillon Gabriel, right? Goes on to lead the Ducks in this just incredible season, 11-1. If you've tried to bet against them like I have at times, it has not come through for you. And this is a year too, like we got to give Moore a lot of credit because they lost their wide receiver 1, Evan Stewart, in the offseason. They had injuries to DeCorian Moore, Gary Bryant Jr., some of the best pass catchers really throughout the year, to the point where like Malik Benson and Kenyon SADIQ have been this guy's go-to weapon down the stretch here in the CFP season. So you look at someone who's 6'3", 206 pounds. I think his accuracy is, again, kind of the trump card here, right? Which you really like, coming in 3rd in the nation in completion percentage. We know that is a hallmark of Dan Lanning's system, though, right? So it's like, is it the accuracy that like Bo Nix had, or is it more the Dillon Gabriel? We're not really sure whether it's a system thing yet, or at least I am not. So I need to see him a bit more diving back into the tape, and also just from a combine standpoint as well. And like, he's not the best athlete, right? That's the other thing about him. Like, he actually, and weirdly, compared to Dillon Gabriel and Bo Nix, like Oregon's offense used to be so good at converting screen passes. And for whatever reason, this guy cannot throw a freaking screen at all, Mags. I don't know what it is. He throws a ton at his feet. He throws a ton of over balls, to the point where really like out routes is how Oregon likes to kind of move quickly through the air now this season. To me, I've compared him kind of a mix between a smaller version of Byron Leftwich with some Bryce Young tendencies in there. So he's not super athletic, but I think like Bryce Young, high IQ passer, accurate over the middle as well. I just think the ceiling could be a bit limited for Dante Moore. Does he ever have a wide receiver or QB1, high QB1 season in the NFL? I don't know. I couldn't really see him, but could he be like that Jared Goff where he just hangs around and clicks off QB10, QB12, QB14, QB16 finishes? Yeah, so I do like Moore. I just think the tier break was with my last player there in Lemon, and I don't think he has quite the ceiling as those top 6 for me in my rankings do.
It is so unusual about Moore that he does the hard stuff really well. Like, he throws outside the numbers, like these back shoulder feeds. You're like, wow, this is amazing. You're right. He can't complete a little dump off, but he can't do it. I don't understand it fully. You think, all right, well, surely that's easy to fix, and if he can do the hard stuff,
gotta be between the heads or something. You know what I mean? Or maybe he's just a click too fast right now and just needs to slow down. Some of that probably comes back to the footwork, right? Too, and getting a little sloppy on the footwork and not setting your feet on those easy completions.
Yeah, I think he declares, right. He's got to.
I don't know how you come back at this point, right? Like, I think you've kind of done everything there is to do, except if you don't win a national championship, go out there and do that. But I mean, there's a lot of pieces that are going to be coming off that Oregon team, and they'll continue to rebuild. But I think you go, because there's no clear quarterback 2 in this draft where there could be easily a multiple set of different quarterbacks coming in and at least being the QB1 or QB2 next year.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a quarterback we think will declare. Maybe we'll get to a quarterback who shouldn't have declared a little bit later, but who knows? We're going somewhere with 1-8 though. Who you thinking, Seth?
Yeah, I'm going to go at number 8, KENYON SADIQ. Stay out there in Eugene, tight end from Oregon. This is a tough one, right? Because he really shined this year, right? 40 receptions coming into the postseason, almost 500 yards, 8 touchdowns. And this is like really the thing about SADIQ is he hasn't gotten to shine because Terrence Ferguson was there, right? And I would say SADIQ is much better of a player. We just hadn't really got to see it. You love the story of this kid, right? I mean, this is someone who comes from rural roots, MAKAI, Idaho, right? Had to leave his school growing up and go somewhere else. Had to move a couple hours away just so he would get noticed by scouts, so he could put himself on the map. So you got to feel for him in that. And like what he lacks in production, I think this guy just makes up an elite athleticism from the tight end position. Coming from a track, coming from a basketball background, this guy shows it. He is a bit undersized, right? And I think he's going to need to develop that route tree a bit more. I kind of get like Eric Ebron vibes from SADIQ, meaning like I think he has top 12 upside, maybe not top 5 at the position. I think a lot of things would have to go right for him. If he does reach his ceiling, though, I think it's going to really be coming in after the catch, right? I don't think he's a guy who is going to make a lot of his game down the field, right? I think he's a guy who is going to have to take some short stuff and make some people miss with it. And that's totally fine for me. I'll take a volume tight end play every single time. We just need to see and make sure that he is a 3-down guy. I don't want to get a Dalton Kincaid out here that's only playing 60% of the fucking snaps or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's one that, like you mentioned, it's the athleticism, isn't it? It's just like you see him move, and I know he's like an undersized tight end, but he's still a big guy. When you see someone like hurdling over players, how many tight ends you see hurdling people? Like, it's not something that you see too often. Like he's going to be really, really fun to watch, and he might be one that everyone gets excited when it comes to the combine. I think he's going to be one whenever he tests people. They're going to get a little bit excited about SADIQ. So I love that he's in there at pick 1-8. And is this where you have your like little cutoff? A lot of people say this is about the time where there's a cutoff in talent. I've maybe got one more guy that I quite like, but I'm not sure if it's the same for you.
I have almost like a cutoff after 6, to be honest with you. Moore and SADIQ are kind of in that next tier, but I also think they're kind of in a tier with this next player of their own as well, where it's like a 1B tier, if you would. I wouldn't, put it in a second, a whole second tier, but maybe like a sub tier, if you would. And that next guy, Mags, is Denzel Boston, wide receiver out of Washington, because I think if you're looking for consistency coming out of the Big Ten, you're looking for a guy who is 6'4", can play that true X wide receiver position. I think you need to be looking at Denzel Boston, right? Because he posted back-to-back seasons of over 800 yards, 20 touchdowns from his time in Seattle, playing with a couple different quarterbacks and Damon Williams there. And before that, we also had just some pretty bad quarterback play, I'd say, from Will Rogers. So finishing top 10 in the country in most metrics the past 2 seasons. He's another guy I think who is great in contested catch situations. He reminds me, and I'm going to go in the way back machine here, kind of reminds me the way he plays of like a Chris Chambers. That was one of my favorite players when I was younger, but he kind of has like the body of like an Alec Io manner, right? A little slow off the gun, but he can be lethal after the catch. So to me, I think there's a lot of upside in his game. I'm really excited for Denzel Boston. Was he someone you also had in your top tier as well?
He's not the guy. He's he's more in my, he's still on my 1B, but he's not the guy that I had in my my one more player. I still think he's definitely a locked in first round guy though. He's definitely in my first round. He's the guy I can almost hear, and forgive me, I can't remember. Is it Rich Eisen, right? I can hear him saying, you know, whenever someone's like drafted early, he goes like, "Whoa!" I can hear that in my head already. For Denzel Boston. Yeah, someone's going to take Denzel Boston a lot earlier than we're thinking. I think he's gonna end up sneakily being a first round guy.
Hit the over or hit the under whenever the line comes out, probably, because I bet the line probably comes out somewhere around 45, 50, depending what happens over the next couple months of where he's gonna go. I'm taking the under on that, baby, just like I did Jaden Higgins last year, and also it didn't work out so well with Alec Io manner, but I also took the under with him. So sometimes you got to take those long shots if you want to sprinkle on like a first round bet at like 60-1. I had a first round bet on Higgins last year, Mags, 60-1 to go in the first round. We got this freaking close to it. If the Texans don't trade out, you maybe get that to the window. But yeah, I think he's someone you do need to look out for who could sneak up draft boards.
Yeah, I think I can see him going first round for sure. So he's in your first round. I pick 1-9. Who's right after him at 1-10?
I think this is one of these players that has just a ton of potential depending on the landing spot. Like if we can get a Rams out of this, or even maybe an Arizona Cardinals, give me Ty Simpson, baby, at number 10, quarterback out of Alabama. I think this is one of those situations where it was really like a roller coaster first season for the Crimson Tide starter, right? Ryan Grubb's offense, love it, hate it. I think it's still better than what the Tide were working with the year before. But this is a guy who absolutely carried Alabama's offense. They had no run game. They had no run game whatsoever. I mean, Jam Miller was hurt to begin the season. Their offensive line could not block for the run game at all. So this was a guy who really had to put it on his shoulder, right? Led Alabama to a 10-3 regular season. Took them to at least to an SEC championship when their backs were against the wall early after that, sudden loss to Florida State right off the rip. But he led the SEC in pass attempts in the regular season and completions, threw for over 3,200 yards, 26 touchdowns as well. The size is fine, right? 6'2", 208. That's fine. I think he can bulk up a little bit. I think he will. What I love, though, about this guy is that it's everything between the ears. It's everything he's doing pre-snap. He is a field general, Mags. And, I think there are a lot of questions about, his, pre-2025 season. Like, why couldn't he beat out Jalen Milroe, right? Like, why couldn't he do that? Maybe it was just Jalen Milroe's athleticism. What happened to Ryan Williams this year? He kind of took a big step backwards in production from what we saw him do with Milroe as well. So, so there are some question marks, right? But I think what this guy can do at the field, I think he's one of the highest IQ players in this class, and I think he will go in the first round, even if it's towards the back half.
You mentioned my dream landing spot for him there, the Rams. I think that's perfect.
If he goes to the Rams, we're moving him up, right? Like I could honestly see myself putting him top 5. Like that's the dream landing spot for really any of these quarterbacks, right? Would be the Rams. So Simpson there with Sean McVay, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. My goodness, sign me up.
Yeah, that would be absolutely immense for him. And you mentioned, his biggest strength there being like between the ears. Man, I think I'm looking at my notes. Something happened week 12 and he didn't recover. I don't know what happened. And it'd be interesting to see if maybe it's something in his personal life that changed. You never know what's going on. But all my notes, week 1 to 11, just glowing reviews. And then something happens in week 12 where it's like, oh, that's weird. Like, oh, he threw a pick here. It's like, oh, and not like another, like, and then there's a note I have in week 14 that says, what are you doing? It's like it was a different player. I couldn't. What do you think happened there?
I don't know. Part of it is I think like teams, they just said, hey, we're going to drop into coverage and we're going to pass rush the crap out of you because we know where you're not running the ball, dude. Like, I think I don't want to say it's that simple, but like Alabama, I think I saw something that like 70+% of their offensive yards, I think from like week 10 on, were through the air. And then that number in that first round college football game was like 90%. They just could not run the ball. So I think, like, to me, if I was a DC, I'm just dropping people on first and second down. If it's 3rd and 10, I'm sending the house, right? And I think that's exactly what happened. I just think things got a little more predictable. I think that for whatever reason, whether it's a schematic issue or whether it's a talent issue or a motivation, something happened with Ryan Williams where he was not the receiver we thought he was going to be. I mean, Bernard and Horton really carried that offense down the stretch. So I don't know. I think there's a multitude of things. Maybe he wasn't fully healthy, and we saw him actually take a seat in that final game this past week against Indiana. Austin Mack came in and looked pretty good. So maybe he wasn't fully healthy as well.
Yeah, maybe that's an excellent point. I mean, we've seen, the best quarterback in the game, Patrick Mahomes, really, really struggle with that this season because there was no run game, and every team knew that. And if Mahomes struggled with it, I mean, obviously a guy like Ty Simpson is going to struggle with it as well. I guess that's a superb point. And he's locked in for now, depending if he goes to the Rams or not. At 1-10, we got 2 picks left in the first round. Where are you going with pick 11?
Yeah, I'm going to go with, I mean, hey, this is the Dynasty Hot Seat, right? So we're getting a little spicy on this one, Mags. I'm going to throw out maybe the most fun prospect in this class, one of my favorite players. It's John Mateer, quarterback out of Oklahoma. Ooh. And this was a guy, I think a lot of people, again, shout out to our guy Phil Cartledge, who had questions about him coming from Wazoo, coming to the SEC, playing in Oklahoma. And like, honestly, like, I get it, right? Because he put some absurd numbers up, like led the country in total touchdowns a year ago. And I think the thing about John Mateer, it's hard to evaluate this year, right? Because that, he had a Heisman campaign going before that mid-season thumb surgery, right? He came back. Yeah. He did not look as sharp since then. He threw 12 touchdowns, 10 interceptions on the season, really relied on some big plays to get some games going, whether it was that LSU game or whether it was also against South Carolina when they're down. It was like, we need a play. Where's Deion Burks, right? I'm going to chuck it up to him. So, like, for me, I think, like, there are questions in his game, especially you look at some of those decisions he made against Alabama in the college football playoff opening round, right? Like he made that pick 6 throw, one of the easiest plays you can make as a quarterback, just goes disastrously wrong for him. And that really ruined the game, right? And like, for me, though, what's intriguing from a fantasy perspective and giving him quarterback 2 upside immediately as he touches the ball under center in a live game is this is a guy who went over 1,200 rushing yards, 22 touchdowns in the past 2 years. I think the upside's there. Is the downside there? Absolutely, Mags. Still listed at just 6'1", plays a bit recklessly with both his body and how he likes to just kind of really overestimate his arm. I think like his range, he could be anywhere from Jake Locker to like a poor man's Josh Allen. Like he'll never be Josh Allen. Don't put like don't clip me saying that, but like he has that type of style of how Josh Allen really came into the NFL and played, right? So I think if he can fix some of those mechanics, fix some of those decision-making woes that he has, I think he could be great, though, just because the rushing upside, like Drake May, as he came in the last couple of years. Does he have the arm of Drake May? Absolutely not. But he has the rushing upside. So that's why I think he deserves to be in the first round. Mags, am I the first person to put him in the first round for you?
Well, interesting. You should mention Phil because actually we did a way too early mock back in September.
Okay,
Mateer was in Phil's first round then, so he was. Yeah, you're right. He was high on the Mateer horse for sure. He might have even been 103. But you had him real early. I think he was a big believer in Mateer. My biggest knock on Mateer, but it also is kind of what makes him kind of charming in a way. He's like one of those boxers that needs to get hit a few times to get going. I feel like he kind of comes out a bit cold sometimes. It's like, what's going on? You think, oh, this isn't going very well, and then he starts to build and come back. It's like, I don't know, does he need to fix something in his warm-up process? Does he needs to adjust something where he's a bit more consistent rather than up here than down here. You kind of want him to be a bit more here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but he's a hell of a lot of fun for sure. So he's locked in at 111. You got one more pick in the first round before we dive into the second. Where are you going to go, Seth?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the tight end bucket here. I'm going to go with Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. This is a 2025 John Mackey Award winner. And he's someone who not only did he finish sixth in the SEC in receptions, but also went for over 750 yards, 4 touchdowns as well. The question for him, it's going to be a lot like SADIQ. He's undersized, right? He's 6'4", but he's 235. So we need to see him bulk up a bit more in the NFL if he's going to be an every down player. But the good thing about him compared to SADIQ, multiple years of pretty elite production, right? I mean, everybody knew that this guy was going to be likely the tight end one coming out of this class. And he has versatility like Tyler Warren, right? Former quarterback. And he can line up out wide. He can line up in line. He can do some of the stuff out of the backfield under center as well. So like he's a Feldman freak. I think he's going to absolutely impress with his 40 time as well. It's just, again, it's got to, like, I don't want Dalton Kincaid. I do not want Dalton Kincaid. I love Dalton Kincaid's talent. Dalton Kincaid is never going to be, unfortunately, I don't think, an every down tight end. And that's what I don't want here. So if he can bulk up before Indy, if he can impress in Mobile, I think he could honestly pass SADIQ. I think he could get in my top 6 or 7 of my rookie rankings. That's where I had Tyler Warren last year. I was higher than consensus on Harold Fannin Jr. I don't mind being high on these tight ends. I just need to make sure that they're going to be someone who's going to play 3 downs. That's all my concerns are. And thoughts there on Eli Stowers, Mags.
Yeah, I really like Eli Stowers. I've got him as my tight end too as well. Man, Vandy were just a hell of a lot of fun to watch this year, and Stowers was always the guy that was thereabouts. And yeah, you're right. Not just a former quarterback, but he was like a really highly. You're not going to like Texas A&M or like he was a pretty good quarterback in his head. So don't be shocked to see Eli Stowers. You're a betting guy, right? Right, Seth. How about this? Sir. Eli Stowers to throw a touchdown in the NFL next season.
I like it. If I could have bet Tyler Warren over like 1.5 rushing touchdowns, I would have bet that. I also would have thought Tyler Warren would have thrown one by now as well. So I'm down. And I like these versatile players, man. Like, just give me more touches. We've seen Harold Fannin Jr. this year get involved in some rushing as well. So like, I want that. And maybe if the tush push gets banned, that takes away some of the versatility for these tight ends. But like, dude, I love seeing Connor Hayward under center for the Steelers. Yeah. I love seeing Mark Andrews do the deed for Baltimore. So I just love these versatile players. They're so much fun to watch, and I think it just gives them a lot more upside too in the NFL. Yeah,
me too, man. Absolutely. So let's roll into round number 2, shall we? We'll pick up the pace a little bit. I'll not ask you a question about all these prospects, but I'll maybe chip in a question here and there. I'll just let you go into a bit of a flow state here, Seth. So let's start off at 2-1. Who you got for us?
Yeah, I guess you'll let me cook, as the kids are saying, right? So
absolutely.
I'm going to go with Antonio Williams, wide receiver out of Clemson. For me, like, this is a guy, you can just see the difference he makes. Clemson's offense, after he got hurt early this season, was just atrocious, right? I mean, absolutely atrocious. And he comes back and it gets better, right? They weren't the Clemson team. And I think he's going to slip down fantasy dynasty rookie drafts, because Clemson really wasn't in the mix this year after all the hype on the offseason. I was there. I had a 21 ticket on him. But Antonio Williams, he's just super versatile with the ball. I think whether it's his route running and his speed, just a very balanced player overall. Led the ACC in touchdowns a season ago, 7th as well. Really just like what he can do. And also another guy who, hey, you can hand the ball a little bit. He can not only get himself open, but if you want to scheme up touches for him, he can make those design touches count as well. So 13 is Antonio Williams. 14 here. I'm going to go actually 14 and 15, Max. I'm going to go back-to-back Penn State running backs, Nicholas Singleton and KAYTRON Allen, coming your way. Nick Singleton, I mean, this is a guy, he was so hyped coming out of high school. I can remember the day I lived in State College at that time, not far from Beaver Stadium. I could see it out my window, Mags, and the whole town lit up when we got Singleton and Aller, right? I mean, everyone was so excited, and the hype was real, right? I mean, this guy goes on to absolutely, crush the touchdown record at Penn State, 45th all time or 10th all time in the Big Ten with touchdowns, with 45 of them. Scoring machine, great pass catcher as well. I think the question is, what happened this year? Like, what happened to him? His rushing production fell in half. KAYTRON Allen overtook him. I don't know if it was just an Andy Kotelnicki issue. I don't know if it was a lack of work ethic. I don't know what happened. I know one thing's for dang sure, though. Nick Singleton can go out there and he can run a sub 4.4. And I think when he does that, he's going to be an early second round pick. And I think he's the RB2 off the board for many teams. So there are a lot of questions with Nick Singleton, but he's a hard-nosed runner. He has a nose for the end zone. He's great when he gets the ball in his hands in space. So I have Nick Singleton there, and then his backfield mate, KAYTRON Allen, right after him. I mean, talk about a guy who sets the all-time Penn State career rushing record, and he was a second-string guy for half his career. It really took, I feel like, the fresh mind of Andy Kotelnicki to say, hey, this guy deserves just as many, if not more touches than Nicholas Singleton. And KAYTRON delivered, man. I mean, so efficient with averaged over 5.5 yards per carry throughout his career, found the end zone this time as well 15 times. He's not as great as a pass catcher as Singleton. He's not as fast as Singleton. I think that'll move him down boards. But this guy's vision, Mags, is unbelievable. I mean, this guy, you could put a penny on a goalpost and he would see it from a mile away. I mean, this guy can just find, I feel like, any crack in the defense and wiggle his way through it. So I love KAYTRON Allen. He's a team player too. He goes to Penn State, and after a first couple good seasons, freshman and sophomore year, he could have left. He could have gone anywhere in the country. Yeah. He could have went and gone back. He said, no, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to play with my roommate, my best friend, Nick Singleton, and we're going to, share the ball, and we're going to share the love. So I think KAYTRON Allen, I don't think he'll be many people's RB3 because Nick Singleton is in this class, and they don't want to rank the other Penn State running back that high, but they should be.
How about this for you? He's my RB2.
Oh, let's go. Let's go.
I love me some KAYTRON Allen. I love him a lot more than Nick Singleton, actually, because, man, I don't know if I didn't catch the hype. Obviously, you live close. You've seen the hype. So I went in watching Penn State being like, wow, I can't wait to watch this Nick Singleton guy. Yeah. And the whole time I was like, who's that? Like, who's that guy? Like, I didn't know anything about KAYTRON Allen. I was like, well, this guy's like clearly, like, to me, I was like, this guy's clearly better than Nick Singleton, because every time he got the ball, it was like, wow, stuff's happening. And then what Singleton has is that, like, he is those big wow players. Well, Allen seems to be more like a thumping, like he goes through and goes through and goes through, where Singleton might do nothing and then do everything. They might end up, like, if they're going to get 90 yards, Allen will get 10, 9-yard runs. Yeah. And Singleton might just get 90 yards in a oneer. They're very different players. I can see why they've decided to pair them together. But I really like KAYTRON Allen.
Yeah, Singleton's more like that Kenneth Walker, right? Where he can get you, he can get you 80 yards, but he can get you 0 or he can get you -2. And I honestly would compare KAYTRON more to the, like, Zach Charbonnet type of runner, where he's just going to go forward. He's not going to go lateral. He is going to go forward and get you the ball. And that's why I think we saw KAYTRON Allen on so many 4th and 1s, 3rds and 1s. I would love if they would have ran him on that 4th and 1 back at that UCLA game, but we won't live my past trauma there with Penn State.
Now, the one word, I'm just looking at my notes on KAYTRON Allen. Let's see if you agree. The one word I've gotten him, and he kind of indicated earlier, I put patience so many times.
Yep.
Yeah, that seems to be the thing that really stands out. Like, he's my. I am so relatable. A few weeks ago, we did an episode, and I was talking up KAYTRON Allen, and I had Matthew Cooper, who's fantastic on, who's watched a ton of tape on KAYTRON Allen. He was like, man, I got bad news. Yeah, I didn't like it. I was like, God.
Wow. So, I'm there. I'm there with you, buddy. It makes me feel a little better too.
Yes, all right. So this is a healing episode. I love it. So we got 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3 in the book. Seth, take a deep breath. You're going on another run, mate. Where are you going next?
Yep. So I'm going to first go back to the running back. Jonah Coleman. This is a 4-year starter. He's had production really since his freshman year. Obviously goes to Washington as a junior and just explodes, right? And I was expecting big things from Jonah Coleman this year. And I mean, really, like, didn't deliver on all that hype, in my opinion, right? I mean, especially, like, from a ground standpoint, did find the end zone 15 times. So if you're playing in Devy Streets, if you're playing in CFF leagues, he was still good for that, especially because he continued to level up his passing production. I think that's going to be a big thing for someone like Jonah Coleman in the NFL at the next level is can he deliver in the passing game? And I think he absolutely can. But Jonah Coleman is just a really, really good all-around running back. I think he also probably doesn't get out of the second round. If he does, it's an early 3rd round pick. Another guy that I actually just had to go back and kind of reevaluate where I had him, because my co-host over there at the Fantasy Pros NFL Draft Show, Derek Brown, downtown Derek Brown, he said, hey, go turn on some KC Concepcion. And I've been in on Casey Concepcion at different times in his career. How could you not be after that freshman season, right? Where he just absolutely tore up the scene, right? I mean, anytime that you have a player who can come in and do the types of things that, whether it's Casey Concepcion did as a freshman, Jeremiah Smith, Malachi Toney this year for Miami. I mean, I'll tell you what, if Malachi Toney was in this class right now, I mean, we're talking maybe 101 overall. I love that guy. But I mean, when you can put on tape what he did early, then he did regress, right? Because NC State's offense last year was absolutely pathetic, right? The entire team was pretty down in the dumps. But he comes to Texas A&M, and my biggest thing to me is like, what was him working across from Craver, right? Because I think Craver's also a really good wide receiver in his own respect as well. And it did feel like at times like he can cook people. Like I know he can cook people, but I also feel like you look back at some of that tape, there were a couple fluky plays, right? They had to, and there are a couple like very negative game scripts. Like everyone remembers they were down 30-3 against South Carolina at the half. I think that was week 12, week 10, something like that. Yeah. And they come all the way back. So I think that kind of helped his production, but I think he's just a really good route runner. Honestly, I think he's just a really, really solid route runner. Yeah. So I love him. And a guy I've flipped back and forth with him a lot, Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana. People are going to look at him. They're going to say, okay, like, not a super highly sought after prospect, really an unknown, but before the last couple of years when Sig Signetti comes to town. But I think this is another player who is physical. He has a great catch radius, as we've seen multiple times when he's had to come down with some clutch receptions. And I think this guy is just someone who can create a lot of space for himself out there in the middle of the field. And he has the build that I like too for my wide receiver. So Omar Cooper Jr., he kind of comes right in there at 18. So that's my next three packets. Jonah Coleman at 16, 17, Casey Concepcion, and then Omar Cooper Jr.
You hit the ding, ding, ding bell on Casey Concepcion. Remember all the way back in the first round, we were talking about who's my guy. It's Casey. That's funny you mentioned it with Debro. Me and Debro have done one podcast before, and we agreed on pretty much every single play. I think we must see things quite similarly because I'm a big Casey Concepcion guy. I just love that. And he's so good at punt returning, but he's also so good at turning things into punt returns. I think that seems to be his real skill. If he gets any kind of space, then look out. And I think he's someone that could come in. The worst thing I think could happen to him is if he goes to somewhere where he is expected to be that wide receiver one, that alpha. I don't really want that for him. I want him to come in and be happily just like a wide receiver two, not too much attention of him, even just play from the slot to start with. I'm delighted with that for Casey Concepcion, and I think he could be a really, really solid, wide receiver two, pushing, towards that high end of wide receiver two if he finds that right landing spot. I just love the talent. I love the athleticism. I love that he turns everything into a punt return. Landing spot's going to be where I kind of go for him. Yeah, that's kind of why I pull back the reins a little bit with him, and he's at the sort of the bottom end of my tiers for him. Sorry, go on, Seth.
Well, and he's that new school wide receiver again, 5'11", 190, right? So you need the right circumstance. You need the right coach who knows how to use that because not everyone does. Like I would say, like honestly, if we're looking holistically, like if you drafted Jordan Addison where he was going in Dynasty rookie drafts a couple years ago, I don't know if you're satisfied with what he's done in the NFL. And like Casey could fall into that same bracket. So I guess that's where I worry about him. But maybe I am too low, and maybe I do need to reevaluate. Like specifically, I think there's a lot of fluidity in my rankings here. Anywhere really between like 8 and the top 16, I see like a very small space in between them where he could move up my rankings. And I'm especially curious to see how he does out there in Mobile because he is on that list. So we'll see him and get up close and bird's eye view of him.
Absolutely. So make sure you're subscribed up to In Between Media for that, Seth. I'm sure you've done loads of coverage of that. Can't wait to see it. So let's keep rolling, shall we? We'll start with 2-7 and go from there.
Yeah, it's Chris Brazzell the second for me. I mean, you got to love this guy for what he put on tape this season. It's just the question with all these Tennessee wide receivers who are a bit one-year wonders at the end, right? I mean, we've had it with Hyatt. We've had it, Cedric Tillman, it wasn't at the end of his career. It was more the middle of his career, and then he got hurt at the end. So, I like Chris Brazzell. I also think that Tennessee, they had a terrible defense for an SEC defense, so they had to kind of throw their way out of games. They played at a very high pace, so I think some of those numbers are really inflated there. That being said, though, like, he's someone I think that in the NFL, if he can continue to get the separation, specifically deep down the field, I think he could be good. I just see him more like an Alec Pierce type of player, right? Like, I don't know if there's just a super like every down first read type of guy. And I've gone back and forth a lot with him and Jacoby Lane, who I have next here. Mags and Jacoby Lane is another guy. Like, was he so good because he was working across from Lemon, right? But I just think this guy has some real sneaky athleticism. I think he has just some absolutely dynamic hands. I mean, this guy made some of the craziest catches I've ever seen. His body control going down to the ground. And like, I was so afraid he was always going to get hurt when I was watching him this season, because he does make some crazy catches. But I do like Jacoby Lane a lot at 20, at 21. I'll throw out Jadarian Price as well, Mags, the running back from Notre Dame. I think, like, let's be honest, it's kind of like a Kaytron Allen situation. But I mean, obviously not like the gap between Love and Price is much bigger than it is Kaytron and Nick Singleton, right? But I think if he's in any other backfield in the country, he's a more notable name. But I think Price is such a good pass blocker. I think he gets on the field really early. I think he's also should be probably a better receiving back. He just wasn't asked to do that at Notre Dame, really. Last year playing with Riley Leonard, didn't really check down to the running back a lot. And then just in general this season, I mean, why check it down to Price when you have someone like that? But I think he can be a really good change of pace back in the NFL. Is he ever a number one? I'm not sure. But I think he could be a really nice complementary back for multiple teams out there. So that's 18, 19, 20, 21 there. Again, that's Brazzell after Omar Cooper Jr., Jacoby Lane, and then Jadarian Price as well.
I love it. Yeah, Jadarian Price is one of those guys that, I mean, I feel like he's cursed to just kind of be forgotten about a lot, because he's kind of like a guy I always stumble across my notes. I'm like, oh yeah, like he's actually really good. But you're right. I'm not saying I don't see a situation where he's not going to be number one, because so many injuries happen that he's probably at some stage going to see an opportunity in the NFL where he will be that number one back, at least for a few weeks. I think he's got the goods. I think there are worse backs at the minute who are the number one running back for their teams, and I think Price could come in and do a really solid job. Like, if he landed somewhere, like I've said for years now, like, I'm not a big like Chase Brown guy at the Bengals. I think if anyone halfway decent ends up at the Bengals, then they could take that job from Chase Brown. I wonder if Price is the kind of guy that could sneakily come under the radar and start pushing some of these guys who are currently running back one for their team, who they're not brilliant. They're not setting the world on fire. So yeah, he's one that I like. The other two guys, Liam, like you said, some spectacular catches, and Brazzell. Yeah, he's a perfect, like, has there ever been a more 2-7 pick than Chris Brazzell?
No. It feels Xavier Legette, anybody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it feels like that's kind of the tier. And like, so honestly, I probably will like leave him for a lot of, I don't think I'll get him in a lot of drafts, but we'll see if the landing spot's good, if he shows up in Mobile, and if he also puts some good stuff out on performance out there in Indy too. I think it could be potentially interesting to see what he does. But yeah, I don't get as excited, I think, as most people do about Brazzell.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there as well. Right, Seth. We got 3 left in the second round. Who are we going to go with?
Yep, I'm going to take you home here with a handful of running backs, and the first is Darius Taylor, running back from Minnesota. I think what he's going to give you in the receiving game, he could bump up a lot in my rankings, and maybe I have Darius Taylor too low. I think part of that is the burn I have from taking this guy in so many CFF leagues this year, and him just kind of really like underwhelming. And part of that, he wasn't fully healthy. But also just like, I didn't see the pop from him in the ground game, or really just like in general, like the efficiency kind of tailed off a little bit for him. You know, part of that was, I think, Minnesota's offense got a lot worse this year with Max Brosmer not under center, which is, you know, kind of hard to do with you see what Max Brosmer has done in the NFL. But I do really think that the receiving value for Darius Taylor makes him a really, really interesting prospect. And he's also a guy, going back to that sophomore season there out in St. Paul, Minnesota, that I think he can like really handle a lot of touches. And you know, you're kind of poo-pooing on my guy Chase Brown. I love Chase Brown, and he actually kind of reminds me a little bit of like a poor man's Chase Brown, a less explosive version of Chase Brown, with just kind of how he's a little bit of a volume hog, not the most athletic guy, but comes from a Big Ten school that most people don't like to watch. So I see a little bit of him in that for sure.
Love it.
Also here, 23, Emmett Johnson, a guy who, decided to spend his whole career in Lincoln, Nebraska. And hey, it paid off this year, right? 1,500 yards, over 250 carries, led the Big Ten in both those metrics. I think the thing with Emmett Johnson here is like, again, it's kind of 1 year of production, right? Wasn't super efficient before this, but he has receiving upside too. Like that's the thing that I really like about Emmett Johnson. And it's like, I think if anyone out of these last 5 or 6 players I've gone through, Mags, the players who I think could rise the most and become early to mid-second round picks for me in Dynasty Superflex drafts are the Johnsons, are the Darius Taylors, because we play in a PPR league, right? And we play in a PPR world. So I think you have to have that in consideration. Had 92 receptions across his 4 seasons, and over 85 of them came the last 2 seasons there in Nebraska. And what was specifically impressive from him this season is like Nebraska couldn't really throw the ball, right? And like I get that Timu Patrick Mahomes had all this hype around him, and I get it, right? But I think part of it, there's too much hype there. He did not deliver, and it's like he really had to be the offense.
Guy gets sacked more than any person I've
ever seen. Yeah, it's just hard with Raiola, right? And then Raiola gets hurt, he goes down, and then it was all on Emmett Johnson, and he just like couldn't carry the full load, it felt like. But I mean, this is another guy who I think, because of the receiving upside, will be good. I just worry sometimes about these Big Ten running backs who have 1 year of monster production. Insert Caleb Johnson, right? Like, I mean, this is a similar player to Caleb Johnson, except he has way more receiving upside. So it's just, it's a little dicey there. Number 24 to round us out, Mags, probably a name I don't think you're going to hear a lot of, just because he really took a nosedive this season. It's Jamal Haynes out of Georgia Tech. He's an older prospect. I don't think a lot of people are particularly fans of ACC football, specifically at the running back position. But look, man, this is someone, whether it was his sophomore year or his junior year, just really wowed me on tape. Every time I saw him, he's another guy who can get north and south very, very quickly. Again, the efficiency tailed off a little bit this season, but he's a really nice pass catcher as well. Has some of the best one-handed catches you will see out of a backfield running back. So I love to see that as well. And also, he's someone who he can do a little bit of everything. He can run out of slot if you need him to. He can go ahead and be in a 2-back system like he was this year. We really saw the rise of some other running backs coming out of that Georgia Tech system kind of push. Hosley was the big one that we kind of saw take a step back forward, and really Hayes ended up taking a step back. But I think he's a really solid running back. Is he ever going to be someone who I think is the RB1 of a team? No, but I think he's someone that teams are going to have on their team for years. Insert Jerick McKinnon, insert Samaje Perine type of player here with Jamal Haynes.
I love it. That is an amazing way to. My Georgia Tech were great fun this year. I mean, they were like,
I love Haynes King, man.
I love Haynes King. Yeah, I'm going to say his name compatriot, almost like the flip of it, right? Haynes King. That guy's. Is he declaring this year? Haynes King. He's not really. He's like he's a fun backup, right?
Yeah. He's fun. Maybe a Taysom Hill type, right? Like if Sean Payton gets the whole, his hands on him. But like I also felt similarly a couple years ago about Holton Ahlers, right? Holton Ahlers coming out of ECU, kind of a Taysom Hill like quarterback where he can run it, power type of guy. I think Haynes King gets drafted somewhere on day 3. But I think, it's a Riley Leonard. It's that type of pigeonhole where you go to him if you need him. But if anything, he's kind of your Swiss Army knife of a player.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is 2 rounds in the books. But Seth, I'm sure there's maybe 1 or 2 guys that you're like, what, Max, I just really wish that I got to talk about this guy a little bit. And I've got maybe 1 or 2 guys. Why don't I start actually? Why don't I give you the highest guy on my list here that you haven't mentioned? And it might be, Seth, that I've not quite caught that they've decided to go back to school. So forgive me if that is the case. But I'm seeing a guy, and actually I can think of why he's decided to go back to school or why he's not decided to declare yet. Chris Bell Jr. suffered that horrible injury, right?
Yes. Yep. That's the whole thing. But I mean, Chris Bell is super talented, dude, right? Chris Bell is super talented. I think the issue with Bell is, it's a bit been the inconsistencies throughout his career and the injury risk, right? That's kind of the thing with him, because I've seen a lot of people have him inside their top 6, inside their top 10 of their wide. He's, right in that range. It's just, you don't have the great track record too of wide receivers coming out of Louisville. So I don't mean to be like prejudiced and a helmet scouter, but I couldn't name a good wide receiver, I think, to really, shine for a long time in the NFL from Louisville, unless I'm mistaking someone.
Yeah, no one comes to mind for me. So he was the top guy on my list of players that wasn't included in the top 24. Is there a guy you're like, you know what, I gotta tell you about this guy. This is my sleeper.
I'll give you two. One is Justice Haynes from Michigan. I have no idea. I don't think he's a sleeper. I think he's a top 24 guy for a lot of people. I did want to include him, though, because I think this guy's a little bit faster than he's given credit for. He's just so hard to evaluate because Michigan's offensive line was awesome this year. It didn't matter if they had Marshall back there, if they had Surfin back there, whoever they had back there was running through people. And because like the holes that he had, it was kind of hard to evaluate him. He also got injured late in the season. So Justice Haynes, someone through the process we need to keep in mind. Turn on his Alabama tape. I think that actually gives you a better idea than what his Michigan tape is going to show, because Michigan tape is just going to show like, a knife through soft butter that's been sitting on the counter all night, right? So
he'll be a Senior Bowl guy, is he?
I think he should be if he's up. It's going to totally depend on health for that. The last one too that I have no idea where scouts are going to put this guy. I have no idea if he's even going to declare, but he's likely going to have to, just because of what I'm hearing in the tea leaves. But you're looking for a quarterback who's gritty. You're looking for a quarterback who loves ball and can win games. It's Trinidad Chambliss out of Ole Miss. I mean, my goodness, Mags, you put on
my guy.
I mean, you put on that tape that he put on that Georgia game.
Dude.
It reminded me of I was trying to put a comp to what I had seen in that game and who I could compare it to. It's like Johnny Manziel type of running around, backyard BS type of stuff. And I love that, right? And he's a little undersized, 6'1", 200. I actually think he has a really good arm. I think his release speed is elite. I think his long passing is elite. Not the best athlete when it comes to, like going out and like, hey, I need you to be a run first guy. He's not that type of guy. Could be a little more accurate on short passes. But as far as Trinidad Chambliss, I think he's a really great kid. I think he deserves a look by NFL teams, and what he did in one short season from going to from the Division II level to not only FBS, but Power 4 and SEC style football when he wasn't even supposed to be the starter. Seeing that development so quickly shows me that I think he can take another step if he does have to go to the NFL. I personally hope he comes back to college so we get to watch him again and he can maybe improve that draft stock and be like next year's Cam Ward, where he could be a number 1 overall pick. But I think Trinidad Chambliss, a guy everyone needs to keep their eye on as we head into Dynasty rookie draft season and throughout the NFL draft process as well.
I think I said on every show so far, it's like, Mike, we talk about Trinidad Chambliss, so I'm glad that you brought it up because I think this guy is great. I've got so many notes on him. The very first note I wrote on him, you mentioned Johnny Manziel. I wrote for whatever reason, I can still see a little bit of my eyes like Baker Mayfield. I can see so much Baker Mayfield.
Yes, great comp. Yes.
Yeah, he's awesome. I just think he's having an unbelievable year. I'm so happy for him. But you're right. Do you kind of share this feeling now with me where, kind of selfishly you want to see them play in the league, but actually the longer these quarterbacks stay in college, man, the better they're going to be.
Yeah, I mean, look at it, dude. Like, nobody was hyping up Bo Nix for years in college, right? I mean, at Auburn, he was like
the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, he was a disappointment, and then he goes to Oregon for a couple of seasons, and he just gets it together. And I think you need that development, especially like, dude, like these are young men. These are young men that need to live. These are young men, I think, that need that experience of going to school, getting an education, learning how to take care of yourself before. I mean, I guess now they have millions of dollars no matter what, but like, before it's just like, hey, you're totally out on your own, because there are real resources there in college too, where, these teams are, telling these players, hey, this is what you should be and should not be spending your money on. This is how you build a brand. This is how you control your likeness, these different things that I think NIL has actually helped. So yeah, no, I'm totally with you, man. And like, as someone who enjoys the collegiate game these days, as much as I do the pros, I love having polished products, because nothing's more disappointing than watching someone be really good in college football for years, and they maybe rush it a little bit, and they maybe, take that step too soon, i.e. Anthony Richardson, right? And you kind of just wish, hey, man, I wish I had that back. I wish I could watch AR one more time at Florida. I wish I could, see him develop a little bit more. So I'm totally with you. I think it's a really smart point that not enough people talk about these days.
I need to. You mentioned they were young men, and last year I would have made a Tyler Shock joke. I need to find out who the old guy in this class is, so I can pigeonhole those jokes in. But unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of the show. This has been a blast as always, Seth. Before you head off, can you just remind everyone where can they find all your amazing work online?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Mags, thank you so much for everything you do for this entire community. I know so many people love your content. I know so many people enjoy working with you as well. So thank you for all the hard work you put in over here and keeping people up to date and, really riding this hot seat 365, right? I mean, you're it's a small team over here at the hot seat, but I know you guys are putting in the legwork. So shout to you guys for just bringing the hashtag certified inferno every single week. And as far as my content and where you can find me over at Fantasy Pros on the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. I am also on the Fantasy Pros NFL Draft Show with our guy Derek Brown. You can also find me on the Betting Pros College Football Show with Scott Bogman. A couple more shows that we have to go for that this week. Continuing to try to cash some tickets. I was on Ole Miss yesterday at 3.5 though, and I got backdoored, and that was a heartbreaker. That was a real heartbreaker. So, and then also inbetweenmedia.com, we combine feel good lifestyle advice with fantasy sports and sports betting analysis. We have NFL, fantasy football. Phil does a great job for us on the college level over there. We have PGA betting. We have NASCAR betting. We have entertainment betting, all to help you really cash more and just enjoy the ride, right? Because why do we play fantasy sports? Why do we sports bet? Because it's fun, because it brings us together. It's a community. So if you're not having fun, why are you doing it? That's what we try to do over there in between media. So fantasypros.com, bettingpros.com, all the YouTube channels and audio feeds, as well as inbetweenmedia.com as well. And thank you again for having me, Mags. Always an absolute pleasure to catch up with my favorite across the pond.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. Absolutely nobody works harder in the game than you. So thank you once again for coming on. And thanks, of course, everybody at home for listening. If you made it the whole way through, hey, leave a like, leave a subscribe, leave a comment. I also want to know, who's your favorite sleeper? That's my favorite question. Who's your favorite sleeper? Pop it in the comments.
Can't take Trinidad. Can't take Trinidad. That's all.
No, he's gone. Yeah, that's on us. Yeah, you gotta pick somebody else. Yeah, absolutely. So that's it for another episode from me and Seth. We will see you again very, very soon. And remember, for anything Dynasty you need to know, keep it locked on the Certified Inferno. Peace.